He is forcibly gagged and can't say anything, but folks like Michael Cohen and others are allowed to say whatever they want, however they want. Jonathan Turley, the GWE law professor, Fox News contributor. Jonathan, good seeing you. An interesting week. If anything, we thought that this would have a stumbling start. It seems to be going at a fairly breakneck pace. If anything, you've heard the Trump legal folks saying it's almost like a rush job going on here. What do you make of it all?
I'm quite astonished it's gone this quickly. I would be surprised in just a conventional case, not one with Trump as a defendant, to have jury selection go this quickly in a major case. But it looks like we're set for Monday. And the frustration of the president, I think, is well-based. I think it's well-based on 2 points. One is, this is a political prosecution. You know, you could say that the Mar-a-Lago prosecution is based on more established law. On that one, it's harder to make that argument. On this one, it's not. This is clearly a political prosecution, in my view. Second, the gag order is a standard device used by courts, but this is not a standard defendant. He's running for president, and you do have Michael Cohen on the air every night attacking him, and he can't respond. I do think that the court is at fault here for not showing some greater flexibility given the context of this trial. Doesn't mean that there shouldn't be no restrictions on Trump or any defendant, but I do think he has a point about the fact that this entire campaign, I shouldn't say the entire, but much of this campaign is going to turn on the weaponization of the criminal justice system, and this case is the primary example cited by many to prove that allegation. You know, he has said, I believe we have the full bite where he talked about this gag order and how it puts him at a disadvantage. He's echoed this time and again. I want you to react to this.
I have to be released of a gag order. They've taken away my constitutional rights to speak, and that includes speaking to you. I have a lot to say to you, and I'm not allowed to say it. And I'm the only one. Everyone else can say whatever they want about me. They can say anything they want. They can continue to make up lies and everything else. They lie. They're real scum. But you know what? I'm not allowed to speak.
He does speak. He speaks out about how he doesn't find that very fair. Prosecutors have said every time he does that, he should pay at least $1,000, and they've added up at least a dozen times he's done so. Some have even advocated throw him in jail and let his cool as jets in there. What do you think of all of this?
Well, Neil, I am not a big fan of some of the president's comments about these pending cases. I think it'd be better for him to allow others, and particularly his lawyers, to make objections along these lines. But I do think that he has a point that this is the major issue in this campaign. I think there is evidence of the political manipulation of the criminal justice system. The question is, how does a court deal with that? These gag orders have been upheld as constitutional. But my problem with this is that these judges have really put the pedal to the metal to get this trial going right before a major election, a presidential election. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to insist on holding this before the election, I think that it's incumbent on you to make some type of recognition of that fact, that you're going to have to allow a little more discussion of a case that is at the center of that campaign. That's where I would fault this judge. So I think the frustration is a valid one. The greater issue here is this case should never have been brought. I mean, this is, in my view, a legally absurd case. This is something that would normally be litigated as a misdemeanor. The statute of limitations has run, and you have a district attorney that created this type of Frankenstein case. He zapped it back into life by attaching it to an alleged federal crime, even though the Justice Department doesn't view it that way. It's not clear that there is a federal crime here. It's not even clear in the indictment what exactly the crime is being alleged by Bragg. All of that makes many of us feel very uncomfortable. And you have people on other networks, liberal legal analysts, saying, you know, this would never reach a conviction outside a deep blue area. I think that's true. I think this would collapse in most areas.
Yeah, well, federal authorities didn't even want to take it up, and of course, Alvin Bragg's predecessor didn't think it was worth the time to take up, but that was
That's
then.
right.
This is now. Very, very different. Jonathan Turley, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.